The sound of paper being torn echoed through the bank like a thunderclap. Richard Hargrove, manager of the Premier Trust Bank's elite branch, had just shredded a $50,000 check right in front of a 16-year-old girl, tossing the fragments into the wastebasket with the scorn of someone discarding junk mail. "Kid, do you take me for a fool?" Richard snarled, straightening his designer suit as he glared at the young woman with disdainful eyes. "A girl like you waltzing in here with a check that size? It's clearly a fake." Aaliyah Thompson stood still, her dark eyes gleaming with a poise that clashed with the chaos. At 16, she had endured stares like that all her life. But something about that Wednesday morning would be utterly transformative. Very transformative. "Mr. Hargrove," she said in a steady voice that even startled the teller observing the drama. "This check is for my enrollment fees at Stanford. It was issued by the Whitaker Excellence Foundation." Richard burst into a harsh chuckle that drew glances from other patrons. "Stanford? Listen, Missy, I don't know where you snagged that scrap, but I recommend you scream before I summon security and the authorities." What Richard didn't realize was that 4 weeks prior, Aaliyah had become the youngest admittee to Stanford's pre-law program on a full ride, an honor bestowed on only 4 teens nationwide each year. The check he had just demolished was the administrative payment dispatched by the university directly. Aaliyah inhaled deeply, recalling her mother's advice. "Sweetheart, someday you'll encounter folks who'll try to diminish you because of your hue. When that day comes, hold your head high. Truth has a way of emerging victorious." She observed Richard pocket his phone after snapping a photo of the check's remnants, likely to mock with his team later about another scam thwarted. "May I request a copy of the incident log?" Aaliyah inquired serenely. "Log?" Richard sneered. "For what? To flaunt to your janitor mom that you attempted to scam the bank?" A chill flickered in Aaliyah's gaze. It wasn't rage. It was resolved. "My mother isn't a janitor, Mr. Hargrove, but even if she were, that doesn't negate my entitlement to dignity." Richard rolled his eyes and signaled the guard to step forward. "Escort this girl out, and if she returns, block her at the entrance." As she headed toward the doors, Aaliyah pulled out her phone and fired off a swift text. "Mom, urgent talk needed. Exactly what you warned about just occurred, but they picked the wrong kid this time." Outside, she gazed up at the towering bank edifice, its glass facade mirroring the cloudy sky. To any passerby, she might appear crushed, but a closer look would reveal something else in her expression. Not defeat, it was the fierce spark of someone armed for a battle the adversary didn't even suspect had started. That evening, a pivotal gathering would convene, one that would alter not just Richard Hargrove's existence, but the bank's entire ethos. Because there are actions in life you simply avoid, and demeaning the offspring of the wrong individual is chief among them. If you're relishing how unfairness can stir unforeseen powers, remember to hit subscribe, as this tale is merely unfolding. What's ahead will demonstrate that undervaluing others might be your gravest error. 3 hours post-incident, Richard Hargrove was still chortling as he displayed the photo of the shredded check to his coworkers in the lounge. "You should have witnessed her expression when I threatened the cops," he guffawed, gulping his 4th espresso. "These youngsters believe they can dupe us with homemade prints." Unbeknownst to Richard, at that instant, 4 levels up, Premier Trust Bank's CEO, Sophia Reyes, was fielding a call that would upend all. On the line, a composed tone stated, "Ms. Reyes, my daughter faced humiliation at your location today. I require an immediate conference." Meanwhile, Aaliyah strolled the bustling city avenues, her device buzzing nonstop. It was her Stanford mentor, Professor Carla Hargrove, coincidentally sharing the surname with the man who just shattered her aspirations. "Aaliyah, we couldn't finalize your registration. The funds bounced back from the bank." "What went wrong?" "A mix-up, Professor," Aaliyah responded with astonishing steadiness. "But it'll be fixed shortly. Very shortly." Truth be told, Aaliyah had mastered composure amid stress early on. At 9, when peers' guardians queried her spot in the elite academy she'd scholarshiped into, she overheard her mother declare, "Darling, folks will aim to shrink you forever. But recall, stars shine brightest in darkness." At 13, when educators questioned her stellar math scores, she doubled down and clinched the National STEM Award. At 15, when skeptics claimed a girl of her age and origins couldn't breach Stanford, she intensified her grind and emerged as the youngest pre-law entrant ever. Now, at 16, she confronted her sternest trial. Back at the desk, Richard persisted in his show for the staff. The highlight was her demanding a safety report. He mocked in a shrill imitation, as if she were some VIP needing paperwork. Emily, the teller who'd seen it all, furrowed her brow. "Richard, are you certain the check was phony?" She appeared so assured. "Emily, I've navigated this field for 25 years. Richard cut in briskly. "I can sniff out con artists instantly. That girl's just another opportunist gaming the system." What Richard overlooked was Emily had quietly jotted the event number and timestamp. Something in Aaliyah's grace had moved her, and she sensed this wasn't concluded. 4 blocks distant, Aaliyah ducked into a cafe and booted her laptop. Her digits danced over the keys as she drafted an email to the Whitaker Excellence Foundation, detailing the fiasco and soliciting a replacement check. This round, she appended a unique clause. "Kindly enclose a notarized verification letter and route it straight to the bank's chair." She knew Richard Hargrove would revel in his triumph a bit longer. She'd permit him that fleeting joy, for when the reckoning hit, it'd be cataclysmic. At 7 p.m., Richard exited the bank humming, smug as ever. He uploaded a snapshot on LinkedIn captioned, "Another shift safeguarding our assets from deceit, ever watchful." Little did he know, this entry would serve as damning proof against him within 36 hours. Aaliyah reached her unassuming 3-bedroom home in the outskirts by 7:15 p.m. Yet, keen eyes would spot the subtleties. The impeccably trimmed lawn by a pro gardener, the subtle yet advanced alarm setup, and the 4 vehicles in the garage, including a sleek Mercedes EQS her mother reserved for key engagements. "How'd the day go, love?" her mother inquired, eyes fixed on the spreadsheets littering the kitchen island. "Enlightening," Aaliyah answered, pecking her mother's cheek. "I learned today what you've always preached about confronting those who underrate us." Her mother glanced up, and for the first time that day, Aaliyah spotted a lethal glint in her eyes. "Oh, honey," she murmured with a grin that stayed surface level. "Certain teachings demand harsh delivery, and I suspect Mr. Richard Hargrove is poised for the priciest tutorial ever." That night, as Richard Hargrove slumbered soundly, envisioning his impending elevation to vice president, 2 females labored in hush. One, a 16-year-old prodigy, composing messages and compiling files with a barrister's accuracy. The other, her mother, dialing influential contacts and arranging sessions pre-dawn. Each slight Richard had inflicted merely fortified something unseen in Aaliyah. A tenacity bred in blood and honed through adversities. What that haughty fellow ignored was that every scornful deed was drafting his own exit memo, and that dismissing the wrong progeny could prove life's costliest blunder. The following dawn, Richard Hargrove strode into the bank, beaming wider than usual. He'd rested well, fantasizing his ascent to regional overseer. During brunch, he flaunted to his spouse the printout of the check scraps. "You should have seen her when I mentioned cops," he chortled, savoring his artisanal brew. "These types must grasp not to swindle us." Unaware to Richard, 5 blocks off, the janitor he'd derided sat in a 60-square-meter boardroom atop the Thompson Dynamics headquarters. Serena Thompson, CEO and architect of one of the nation's premier fintech firms, was polishing docs that would overhaul Richard Hargrove's world. "Mom," Aaliyah announced, stepping in with 2 lattes. Stanford confirmed. "They're dispatching a duplicate check to the bank's head with a dean-signed endorsement." Serena beamed, though her gaze stayed frosty. At 44, she'd erected a $420 million dominion from NADA, post-single parenthood at 28. Aaliyah was her crown jewel and prime drive to bar anyone from belittling a Thompson anew. "Splendid," Serena retorted, sealing a dossier. "And the 4 p.m. sit-down with Sophia Reyes? She sounded keen when I noted it concerned bias against youths in finance," Aaliyah affirmed, perching on the velvet seat opposite her mother's workstation. Serena had crossed paths with Sophia Reyes 6 years back at a Women in Leadership Summit. They'd maintained loose ties, but Sophia was clueless that the fintech advisor Serena Thompson, who sporadically emailed, helmed Thompson Dynamics. She'd cultivated this understated vibe deliberately. You never foresaw when subtlety paid off. As mother and daughter methodically plotted, Richard Hargrove savored his peak workday. 4 VIP clients lauded his stringent protocols after he regaled them with the prior day's fraud bust. Emily, the teller, merely shook her head, irked at his twisting degradation into boast. "Richard," Emily hailed as he breezed by. "Sure the girl was scamming?" She radiated confidence. "Emily, sweetheart," Richard patronized. "Hone your gut. I detect phonies from afar. Classic case." What escaped Richard's notice was the suited gentleman who just entered and caught the exchange. Attorney Dr. Elias Grant, retained by Serena that morning, covertly snapped Richard's badge and logged the dialogue time. An hour on, Serena and Aaliyah huddled in Dr. Grant's suite, dissecting legal tactics. We've got ethnic bias, minor degradation, asset ruin, and possible slander. Dr. Grant enumerated, scanning footage from bank cams and Emily's account. Ironclad suit. Not mere litigation, Doctor, Serena asserted. This must be exemplified. No child endures my daughter's ordeal. Aaliyah, silent till then, chimed. Richard Hargrove must grasp actions that bear fallout, but crucially, the bank reforms protocols. Dr. Grant grinned. Seldom did clients blend justice with vengeance so aptly. Idea. Rather than sue outright, propose an out? Let them rectify pre-publicity. At 1:45 p.m., Richard munched lunch when the CEO's aide rang. Mr. Hargrove, Ms. Reyes demands your presence now. Yesterday's event. Richard was puzzled. Event? He'd averted a con. Perhaps personal kudos. Yep, likely. He ascended to the penthouse, humming, fixing his cufflinks. Entering Sophia Reyes's suite, she sat stern-faced like never before. To her right, a poised lady in a charcoal suit he didn't know. Left Aaliyah Thompson. Richard's pulse halted. The teen, in a crisp gray sweater and slacks, no longer seemed cowed. She exuded peril. Mr. Hargrove, seat yourself, Sophia intoned icily. Detail precisely what transpired with this young woman yesterday. Richard scanned the space, assurance dissolving. I adhered to safeguards. The check seemed dubious. And that check, Aaliyah interjected evenly, covered my Stanford pre-law dues. I'm the institution's youngest admit ever. Sophia unveiled a binder, shoving papers over. These verify the check's legitimacy from Stanford's provost, plus a scathing missive querying why their scholar was shamed here. Richard's palms quivered. Grave error, yet he grasped not the full weight. Then Serena Thompson rose, offering her hand to Sophia. Sophia, appreciate the prompt audience. As phoned, such matters escalate if mishandled. Sophia warmed slightly. Serena, unbelievable your kin's involved. Mr. Hargrove, she pivoted, eyes ablaze. Clueless who you demeaned, eh? In that instant, Richard Hargrove comprehended he'd misjudged not merely a gifted youth, but a lineage wielding clout beyond his dreams. As heavy quiet loomed, one query haunted his panicked thoughts. If this was prelim, what loomed next? Fact was, Serena Thompson had forged her realm for such junctures, to guarantee her child evaded the hurdles she'd leaped. And now, after 16 years of vigilant shielding, a line was breached around Aaliyah. Richard Hargrove was due to learn life's repercussions no finance handbook prepped for. The hush shattered as Sophia Reyes activated the 70-inch wall display. Mr. Hargrove, pre-proceeding, view this. Footage from yesterday's bank cams rolled in HD. Richard gaped in dread at his replay, ripping the check, binning shreds, mocking gestures. Audio crisp. Kid, take me for a fool? A girl like you. Sweat beaded on Richard's brow. Unaware of audio taping. All sites were fully equipped for 3 years, Sophia retorted frostily. But that's a mere opener. Serena Thompson approached the Vista window. Mr. Hargrove, proper intro. Serena Thompson, CEO and originator of Thompson Dynamics. Recognize us? We engineered your audio recording security nets. Richard blanched. Thompson Dynamics held a $420 million pact with national banks. He'd invoked the firm endlessly, never linking to the janitor he'd scorned. Unreal, Richard rasped. Sophia accessed another doc. Fiscal logs here. Serena holds 15% of Premier Trust via her venture arm. Our second biggest solo investor. Aaliyah observed placidly as Richard Hargrove unraveled. Mr. Hargrove, know your retort from yesterday isn't novel. At 9, a headmaster said girls like me lacked smarts for elite tracks. At 13, an instructor alleged test fraud in physics. At 15, a guide urged realism on ambitions. Richard stammered incoherently. But the intriguing part? Aaliyah pressed. Each recanted post-results. The track I lacked for? Valedictorian. The fraud test? National physics champ next year. Unreal ambitions? Here we stand. Serena reopened her portfolio. Sophia, our firm mandates anti-bias strictly. When an affiliate's staff discriminates against my kin, it's corporate. Sophia concurred solemnly. Fully grasp, Serena. Thus, Serena proceeded, eyeing Richard's perspiration. Propose a mutual win resolution, save for the undeserving. Richard croaked. Please, error. Explainable. Explain dubbing my child scammer sans probe? Serena queried serenely. Explain presuming I'm a janitor via bias? Explain obliterating Stanford's doc from racism? Dr. Grant, hitherto mute, declared. Mr. Hargrove, civil action for ethnic bias, minor abuse, property demolition, emotional harm, $3.1 million. Fillable in hours. Richard's knees weakened. His $95K yearly couldn't touch that indemnity. Home nest egg? Vanished. Yet, Serena noted. Alternative on table. Sophia perked. 1. Richard Hargrove fired forthwith for cause, sans perks, with indelible discrimination mark on dossier. 2. Premier Trust rolls mandatory anti-bias workshops bank-wide, my firm funded. 3. Bank establishes $600K grant pool for underprivileged minority scholars, our trust managed. Richard gaped to object, but Sophia silenced. Or, lawsuit, Fed probe on finance discrimination, media storm when tale of manager shaming savior CEO's air breaks. Richard then fathomed his folly's scale. Not just shaming a prodigy, he'd assailed kin of the woman whose investments buoyed his bank. He'd torched his vocation via bigotry. Terms accepted, he murmured faintly. Serena's first genuine smile surfaced. Superb. Sophia, docs please. As Richard inked his severance with a shaky grip, Aaliyah neared once more. Mr. Hargrove, wish you someday realized the issue wasn't my seeming undeserving of respect. Issue. You forgot all merit, respect, looks be damned. 25 minutes later, Richard Hargrove traversed the lot final time, lugging a carton of trinkets. Within, the check shreds photo, now stark memento of bias-fueled career ruin in under a day. Beyond, he spied Serena and Aaliyah boarding a Mercedes EQS. Now he noted missed cues. Serena's understated Patek Philippe, Aaliyah's premium tablet, the assured gait of triumph-habituated duo. As the vehicle receded, Richard Hargrove absorbed life's dearest lecture. Never appraised by facade, specially ignorant of the narrative's depth. But too tardy for him? Some spans, prejudice-charred, stay irreparable. 7 months on, Aaliyah Thompson navigated Stanford's venerable corridors in her pristine lab coat, toting ethics tomes heavy as her duties as history's youngest pre-law scholar. At 17, she'd not merely endured her debut term. She ranked top 5 in the cohort. Aaliyah beckoned Professor Marcus Reyes, ethics depth chair. Chat re. Your thesis on equity in law and ethnic gaps. It was research sparked by the bank ordeal, a probe into how legal prejudices skew justice and verdicts. Drawing widespread acclaim, 4 firms had tendered her clerkships. Meanwhile, 200 miles distant, Richard Hargrove roused in his cramped studio in the city's seedy quarter. At 54, he clerked at a discount mart for $13 hourly, less than his erstwhile daily bank take. The discrimination scar on his CV barred finance gigs. 4 interviews tanked upon history reveal. The abode he'd mortgaged 18 years for, auctioned to fund post-firing legal skirmishes. Richard Mann register for? Barked his boss, a 25-year-old uninterested in courtesies. He was mere fodder who'd derailed. In downtime, Richard sporadically searched Thomson Dynamics news. Serena's outfit ballooned 280% yearly, globalizing. She graced power lists, keynoting on fintech and inclusion. Cruel twist. The mart adopted Thomson Dynamics payroll tech. Each clock-in flashed her emblem, a daily jab. Premier Trust, post-reforms Serena spurred, epitomized inclusion. Anti-bias curriculum eyed by peers. Grant fund aided 142 needy minority pupils. Emily, ex-teller and witness, now led client relations. In a trade journal chat, occasionally one's folly schools the masses. Richard Hargrove illustrated via nadir how bias wrecks innocence and empires on shaky ground. Sophia Reyes championed diversity in banking. At an awards banquet for inclusive helm, she noted, "Profound shifts often sprout from agony. A 16-year-old schooled us. Appearance judging ain't just ethic fail, it's biz suicide." Aaliyah, streaming from Stanford Digs, grinned seeing Serena motivated by 600-plus moguls. Her mom transmuted personal wrong into an equity crusade. On her bureau, beside law vols, Aaliyah framed a snap, her and Serena at Academy commencement, beaming pre-Stanford arch. Reverse inscribed, "To my girl who showed dignity's invaluable, justice timeless. 4 years since that bank afternoon." Aaliyah, now 4th-year law, focused on civil rights advocacy. Her ethnic disparity work revamped policies in 6 states. Richard Hargrove persisted at the mart. At 57, back pain from endless stocking plagued him. Old bankmates occasionally spotted him in the dairy, averting gazes. More self-shame for chortling at his teen torment. The saga viralized as a prejudiced boomerang example. Aaliyah shunned posting, but a YouTube clip, "How a Biased Banker Tanked His Life in Minutes," hit 4 million plays. Ultimately, Richard Hargrove sought to shame a stellar youth for skin tone, shaming solely himself. Aaliyah grasped true justice isn't tit for tat. It's radiating so luminously, even naysayers behold your glow. Supreme vengeance ain't demolishing detractors. It's erecting triumph so grand they see their own pettiness. Life sometimes plants bigots in paths not for humility lessons, but to affirm our splendor independent of their nod. If this yarn of metamorphosis and equity stirred you, subscribe for tales proving undervaluing can costliest heir. Recall, never judge covers, you might spurn a magnum opus.